Welcome back to Global War 1939. We just finished off round 5. So let's take a look at some of the things that has taken place. So for the Germans, they went ahead and initiated Operation Barbarossa. We have now advanced into Russia in 2 different directions this time around. Certainly the southern attack was planned, so we went to Crimea, Western Ukraine, and this territory right here. And currently, what is in there, we have 14 medium tanks, 7 artillery, 3 heavy artillery, 3 SS mechs, 4 regular mechs, 4 Mark IVs, 3 SS infantry, and close to about 40 infantry. And then we have a follow-up force of, we got a Mark V, a Mark IV, 5 infantry, 2 artillery, and 2 SS mechanized. We also have paratrooper and air transport in Bulgaria. Oh, and we got our these two new units here, Starchum Yakin 3. I don't know how it's pronounced, but these are pretty cool little units. Certainly more valuable on attack, as they attack on 7, defend on a 4. So definitely you want that part of your attacking force more so than your defending. And they also went ahead and attacked in the north. This is usually not a go-to tactic. Definitely an advancement of opportunity. You remember the Russians went into Finland, eliminated the Finnish army, but pretty much costing their own force as well. So then the Germans took advantage, used their transport and a couple of other follow-up units, and helped save their ally. And then from there, they advanced, again, using more transports and advancing via land into Leningrad and these 2 northern territories up here. So this place is pretty secure, not 100%. The Russians could advance in some units here to liberate this. That is no question. However, at what cost? How depleted are you going to make Moscow trying to retake Leningrad? And Leningrad for the Germans is a very important city. So is Stalingrad and Moscow, of course. However, the Germans are trying to activate their allies, Spain and Sweden. They're like semi-allied with them. But if they take out Moscow and one other city, they certainly activate both of these countries. And both countries come with Spain comes with a sizable army, has a small navy. Same thing with Sweden. Sweden's army is not as big as Spain's, but they also have a small navy as well. And of course, Sweden will help defend the rest of Scandinavia. If they are activated, then the armies here, I'll probably just keep them at home. The Swedish will probably come into Oslo, help defend. Spain will probably just help defend this. The biggest benefit is the military units that you do get with those countries are great. The biggest benefit is the income. You get an extra 3, so that's $6 more that you can add. So it's pretty decent. And then outside of attacking Russia, the Germans just did another purchase buy, got 3 more units into Paris, and a couple more units into Western Germany. Their attention is still very much with the Russians, but we'll see. This sizable army here, this might be enough to come all the way into Moscow. We'll see. We'll still add more units as we go, but their attention should start, instead of being 100% on Russia, it's now more 60-40, as they do need more units here to keep off the Americans and the British. For the Italians, they went ahead and added more units into northern Iberia. They do do need to watch out for their back door. They did advance one more space. Now they're in Upper Egypt, just one more territory, separate Cairo. So this clash should happen pretty soon. Taking out Upper Egypt is important because it does have the seaport. So this fleet, before the Italians went in, this fleet had the capability of moving 3 spaces. Now they're just down to 2. Because if they never took this, taking these transports, they could have went 1, 2, 3, landed. So this was definitely important. They could still do that maneuver, that's fine, but they could only get as far as Greece, or might swing around and take out or attack these territories here. So we'll see. The British here, at first they were thinking they were probably going to wait out to activate Iraq after turn 7 and get the extra couple of infantry. However, they decided just to go and attack the pro-Axis country, easily removing the 2 infantry that the Iraqis have, giving the British another $2 plus a $5 bonus. So this territory was actually worth 7 to the British. So why wait 2 more turns to activate that? We'll just go in now. Plus, they did find some Italian reports that the Italians were planning on activating it. So remove that threat before it becomes a threat. And for the British here in Cairo, just another buy. Added some more infantry, some more high-rolling defensive units, utilizing more of the transports, bringing up some more units that were scattered along Africa, and get as many units in there as possible, especially that the Italians did advance one step closer. These 3 destroyers broke away from the main body of fleet, and they're going to come after the lone German sub that's now in the Atlantic. This is the remnants of the starting Atlantic subs that the Germans start. The last cruiser, there was one last cruiser. The British did bring down a couple turns ago. A bunch of destroyers and a cruiser. The Germans had 3 subs, I believe, possibly 4, and a cruiser. They attacked it, sunk all the destroyers, but they lost their subs in that process. And then the British came down from their home island, took out the last cruiser, and dumped a bunch of units here in Africa. At first, they were planning on going into France with this body of troops here, but the British kind of rethought that, as their only war vessels that they had was a battleship and 2 destroyers, but they had a huge amount of transports. So if they could have easily went to Sea Zone 28, landed in either Bordeaux or Normandy, no problem. I would expect the Germans would not stand a chance. So this battle would have been easy. However, the counterattack from the Luftwaffe, the Germans got pretty much their entire air force here in Western Germany. Would have easily went 1, 2, 3, easily would have sunk all their transports, and they would have had to rebuild it from scratch. So what they decided, instead of going into Europe right now, they still will, they're just going to delay a little tiny bit. They're going to go after the Italians in Africa. So they're going to try to save Cairo, because I have no doubt that the Italians would have eventually taken out Cairo. But now with this force here, they're going to slowly move west. So then that gives a decision for these guys. Do they still continue into Cairo ignoring this force, or do they turn around? They did drop a couple of units here, like I already said, but these were originally marked to go over here. So their plan of dropping forces here is already starting to work. We'll see how much damage, or if they can possibly save Cairo. And then, as for the Americans, they did build another transport. They did take their fleet here in Sea Zone 29, and they did, yes, activate Brazil. So they brought down two of their transports with four units, so they can activate the whole country all at once. And then Brazil gives you three more infantry. They do give you another transport and a coastal battleship, and of course this seaport. They were delayed by one term because of the German fleet, but the British took care of that for the Americans. So now, what to do with this force? I think probably the best use of this force at first would probably go 1, 2, 3 and take out the Italians in Gibraltar. Would probably be a good fit, or land in Morocco to help boost up the British. We'll see. That's pretty. And then Canada, they just built another transport, another tank, another infantry. So they're trying to do their part as much as they can. As for the Russians, once they seen the Germans advance into 6 territories all at once, they kind of turtled. Is not like they weren't already doing that, but this definitely puts a lot of pressure on. Do they go on the attack? Do they stay on the defense? Do they recapture Leningrad? Leningrad's got what? A medium tank, 2 Mark IVs, airborne, and 3 infantry. So they can take it, and they don't really have much of a follow-up force to counterattack it. But can they get to Leningrad and back to Moscow before the Germans advance into Moscow? We'll see, because this will take at least 3 turns, minimum 3 turns. What if the Germans don't stop? Now, if the Germans advance here and wait for reinforcements, and certainly you have enough time to get there and back. What if they don't? What if they just go for it? So we'll see what the Russians decide in the future. China, FEC. China did take the Chinese did have a sizable force here. The Japanese came in through multiple different territories, liberated their own territory, but the Japanese did eliminate all the Chinese forces in the first round of combat. However, the Chinese rolled, I think they had 5 infantry there, and they rolled 3s and 2s and 1s. So the Japanese took certainly a lot more losses than what was expected. They were only expecting to lose 2 infantry in that battle. And then the Chinese counterattack went in. The counterattack did not go as well. The Chinese went in with 5 infantry and their fighter, losing 3 of their infantry, and the Japanese only lost 1. So they rightfully retreated, fearing that they don't want to take any hits on their fighter if they don't have to. And for the FEC, just again, another buildup in Burma, trying to keep that Burma road open as much as possible. But it's getting down to the point where one side will have to attack the other. And the FEC did get some cavalry. So that's pretty nifty. As for the Japanese, they are into 1 territory in common with China, only 1 to go, and that side is eliminated. This might be a good move because it kind of outflanks the Chinese. The Chinese are losing quite a bit of infantry. The last 2 rounds have been very expensive on their infantry. They're losing more than what they're able to produce. Even though China is making quite a sizable amount of money, they are losing quite a few number of infantry that they just can't replace fast enough. So that is either slow down on the attacks, probably back up a little bit, exceed some territory to the Japanese, and try to rebuild. We'll see. And the Japanese did capture all these islands. They did go into Dutch New Guinea, so they got one more, and then this island here, possibly take out Solomon Islands and recapture their Carolina Islands that the Australians took out. But the last couple turns, Australians have certainly been backing up. They've been retreating a lot, but they seen the Japanese take out Dutch New Guinea, and they decided to bring forces from their home country up and to help defend. So they got the bulk of their army here. They did go ahead and purchase heavy artillery and 2 more infantry. So they got a small force here, but the bulk of their army, they also brought up their fighter, and they brought up their navy, which is here. So they got 3 cruisers, 5 destroyers, 3 subs, 2 transports. So this was more of a showing, the Japanese can certainly move in here, but this is certainly a showing that Australians are showing the Japanese that they're not afraid of them. So we'll see how this all plays out. The Americans did put most of their money into the Pacific, so they went ahead and purchased 4 cruisers, another battleship, another carrier, and a fighter. They already had 1 fighter in San Francisco, so they put it on their aircraft carrier. So add that with this fleet here, 3 battleships, 2 more carriers, 3 cruisers, sub, 3 destroyers, and 2 torpedo boats. So these fleets are getting pretty sizable. Aircraft carrier wise, the Americans have now 3 total. The Japanese have 4. They have 2 in their main fleet, 1 up by their island, and then 1 down here. Battleship count, Japanese got 1, 2, 3 regular battleships, and 2 armados. The Americans for battleships, they have 1 here and 3 there. So the Japanese are ahead slightly. The Americans are not too far behind. The Japanese last purchase was mostly in their navy. They got a cruiser, a carrier, a couple of specialized fighters, and their armado. And they also got a couple of airborne, so now they can start using their transport aircraft instead of in the non-combat phase. Now they can start using that in the combat phase. So we'll see. And the Dutch had the Japanese brought a transporter, just a lone transport and an infantry to take out Guam when they attacked the Americans. So the Dutch, the Dutch has a small fleet. So down here they get a cruiser, a sub, and a destroyer. You start the game with. So that sub went up and took out the transport, but then 2 destroyers from the Japanese took out that sub. All right, so that's pretty much it for this recap. Things are starting to heat up. So with this transport fleet now they got their guys offloaded, they'll head back to the mainland or their main country. They did deplete quite a number of the more advanced units. Pretty much all they got left now are infantry. They did also brought down 2 fighters down here as well. So it will take them a little bit to rebuild the artillery and the armor, but certainly their next objective will be to go after France. And then the Americans are continuing to build up. The Americans they do need to start putting more warships to help defend against the German Air Force once they do land. Basically, the British and the Americans want their war vessels to be big enough to defend their transports against the German Air Force, so that to the point where the German Air Force won't even bother to attack their navy, because the Germans certainly don't want to lose them. But So that's going to take a little bit more work. This is where they're really lacking. They focused a lot on their transports. Now they need to switch gears and get some more cruisers and destroyers and vessels of that nature. And the Italians brought up their main navy is right at the gates. They did this in response of this, but this kind of leaves the door open for this fleet to come up and take a pot shot. So if this fleet does enter the Mediterranean, these guys have no choice but to turn around, kind of saving these guys. So we'll see how it all plays out. All right. Well, thank you for watching, and have yourself a great day.